If your friend come and ask you for a car key and you doubt that he really know what a car is, and you ask him a question, okay, and he will reply, okay, car is something, a chair to sit so that you can go and get the groceries. Normally, you will not hand over the key to that friend. But before deciding that, you ask him one more question. What is a boat? Then he will answer, or he answered, it's not a car. That is something we try to understand about happiness. No one study happiness, and nobody feel that we have to study for happiness. And some people think that lack of unhappiness is happiness. In some other places, it's like you are studying the air. You just breathe it, you don't have to study it. Or in other way to put it, it's something like we are studying the astronomy. So you can learn about the stars, but you cannot change them. So the book, The Build the Life You Want, is written by Oprah Winfrey. I'm not sure. I don't think I need an introduction for Oprah in this case. And Arthur C. Brooks. He is a research in Harvard teacher and all. He is a research in happiness and all. Both of them join together and make a book. So he was researching in the Harvard and all. So part of the research, one day his wife come and ask him, why don't you use this research? Maybe he teased it, or wife would have teased him, telling that why don't you use this particular studies to improve your life? At that moment he tried to improve it and make it like a study. Then Oprah collaborated it and we end up with a wonderful book. So let's get started. So we'll start with a story about Albina. She's the mother-in-law of Arthur C. Brooks. And she's an interesting lesson for the author. Point is that she was born during the Spanish Civil War, and her father was being prisonized, and in part of the prison she found someone, and they actually guided him to find his next husband. So somehow he married like a normal person, and she's having a good life. At some point in time, her husband left him and leave him, and then she go away. So at an age 45, something changed. Similar to a Promethean act of will, what William James talk about, what changed his life, the father of modern psychology. She tried to think about, I cannot change the circumstances here, but what I can change is the way I am reacting to these circumstances. So focus on the outer world is what is, if you always focus on the inward, you don't find a bandwidth to understand the outer world. So focus on the outwards and the pillars of happiness, which is family, friendship, work and faith. That is somehow a lesson of Albina. Later on, after a decade, more than 10 years afterwards, her husband come back and she accepted her. So joined. So when she was trying to decide to change her life, she quit her job. She go and learned in college to become a teacher. At that time, she was the most senior person in that college, in that particular class. Then she studied there. She became a teacher. So she's telling that at that moment, like, okay, the key for happiness is in my key, or the way we look at the world, the way we judge, way we look at the circumstances. That's what it. Otherwise, people are same. Her husband is same like before and after, but they still have the good married life. But she tried to change how she look at it. So why I told about Promethean act of will, William James, if you read the Mark Manson book, you would have read Mark Manson nicely put it there about William James there. So William James was the eldest of the children in his family, and he was joined in Harvard Medical School, and all. He was more about depression and not able to cope up with that scenario. At one point in time, With what is actually changing his life is a Promethean act of will, where he considered that, or he put it in a writing, whatever is happening on my life, I am the only person responsible. That one single sentence gives us the father of modern psychology, William James. Chapter 1: Happiness is not the goal, and happiness is not the enemy. So the chapter starts with the story about a professor, Mr. Randy Pauch. In 2007, he was giving his final speech. Not because he's retiring. Even at some point in the part of the speech, he was doing one-hand push-ups and all. He was so much excited. So the story is trying to tell that it is not something like somebody's retiring or this is his last day in his college. No, he's actually having a disease or some level of cancer or something, which already doctors have given him a period where he will live. But still he is living for it. Because Oprah, in the start of the book, is telling, I have seen multiple types of people. I have seen some people who is very much having too much unfortunate things happen, and they come there, they cry and they empathize. The audience empathize with them. And there are other genre of people where they are so much abundant, they just inspire and people just admire them. And Oprah is telling, there is a third category of people, which is actually, they have all reason to be unhappy, but still they found themselves a way to become happy. That is actually a secret of this. So if you look at previously, from the moment we are in Africa having the wheel to the nowadays where we having like a hunter-gatherer, to the wheels, to the even the TikTok, even the latest age, we are still looking for or searching for happiness. So if you look back in 340 BC and all, Epicurus actually given us a definition of happiness is that happiness is something like a freedom from mental disturbances and the absence of physical pain. Two parts. First one mind, second one body. If that is not there, Epicurus is telling, then that is what happiness means. But that was not correct if you look at now. Even the people who we think that they have all reason to become happy, even the celebrities, they have that much immense level of money, wealth, fame and everything, you found they're going to get suicide with depressions and all. But let us stay with Epicurus. 100 years after Epicurus, another guy came called Epictetus. He's something like a Stoic philosophy. If you follow Mark Aurelius and all, you'll understand Stoicism and all. So what he's trying to tell us, happiness is finding the life's purpose, accepting one faith and then act on it. So the act itself is actually finding the happiness. So happiness is not a destination, happiness is a direction. That's what it means. So macronutrients of happiness is enjoyment, satisfaction and the purpose of life. So yes, staying with the same, what will you do if you are unhappy? So sadness. Because there is a recent book by Walter Isaacson about Elon Musk. And some of the chapter or even the first of the chapter is starting about adversity. Adversity is actually made Elon Musk. But coming back to here, sadness or regret is something like an amazing cognitive feat. You will get an opportunity to reflect on something you can imagine and have a feedback. So regret will sharpen decision. The best-selling author Daniel Pink mentioned it as some of the important things. Even it is not staying there. The creativity, because you will see that melancholy and all is part of all of this creative creations of like Wordsworth, John Keats, Bythewood, everybody. So the point is that John Keats mentioned that world of pain is a school of intelligence. And Bythewood, similar thing, like Usually the researchers has found that if there is a 37% increase in sadness, then there is one composition will happen. So if there is an increase in 37%, that is a chance for one composition, one new composition from that composer. So when you are sad, your ventrolateral prefrontal cortex will focus intensely on that complex problem. So you will somehow getting focused on not on the silly things, you will be focused on the more complex thing, and that will sharpen your ability, and that will almost make it into or more tolerant to the risks and all such things. That's what, like, Elon Musk sometime go out of sync like that. So he's that much having a risk taking capability because of such things. So generally what the chapter conclude is that we should be grateful for the bees, not only honey. What you are now is because of all that unfortunate things that is happening to your life. So you should be grateful for the bees. At the same time, you are grateful for the honey as well. Power of metacognition. Simply put, thinking about thinking. So Viktor Frankl, the author of Man in Search for Meaning, he will come across him, but he's generally is part of the concentration camp and all. He come back, he reflect himself. Same thing what we tell. He tried to choose to how to react to his emotions. So it's something like, imagine, because I'm into the projects field and all, book also explain the same thing. Like, imagine you have a construction project and you are able to understand, okay, there are going to be a rain coming soon. How will you manage that? You will just sit there and then look at how the rain is affecting the construction work, or you'll make some contingency plan. Naturally, I think you will do that. But the same thing is not happening to our life or our thinking and our problems. Because famous of the brain, how the brain is developed into three brains. First one is a stem brain, which is the very primitive brain, which is mainly responsible for motor functions and all. The next part is the limbic brain, which is a reptilian brain, which is like how we respond to stimuli and all these things. The very most advanced or the most recent one is the neocortex, which is something like, okay, you have a petroleum, right? A petroleum is getting refined and getting into product. So neocortex is something which is refining this one and getting out. So if you are not able to do that, people end up trying to switch off the brain. They try to fine tune substance abuse, alcohol and all they found there. So because we live now in a world, like our ancestors have lived in jungle and forest. And sure, they have to respond to when the tiger is coming and all. But nowadays, very rarely we face a tiger. Until and unless you go for a vacation and you go to a particular place to see the tiger itself. Otherwise, you have very rare chance to see a tiger. But most of us are still living in that same survival mechanism, how we protect from tiger, same level of response we are giving it to a phone call, to an email and many of the life small things or even the bigger things as well. But that is not that much big as a tiger for your survival. So you cannot change the history, that's true, but you can change the perception of that history, how you look at that history. So your opinions may change, even if you look at yourself. So our memory, our human memory, people are considering it as something like a retrieval process. Okay, you studied in school, you get that thing, you get that information back. That is something like memory. But actually, our memory is more retrieval than reconstruction. So the same incident or some bad incident happened, the people will be telling about a summary about that one same moment will be totally different if you ask that same question after many years, like after 5-10 years, because the memory is still there, but how they perceive that particular incident would have changed based on their life experiences. So that really matters. So power of metacognition, thinking about thinking. Choose better emotions. So coffee or regular coffee is a good metaphor. So the point is that coffee has adenosine molecule. So usually in our daytime or during your day period, your body will use that signal to just pass the molecule. So at the end of the day, like adenosine is responsible for making you fall asleep and all. So what coffee is doing or caffeine is doing is that it will go to the place where one neutron will push a molecule, other will catch what is being shoot. But this caffeine will go and fit into that place where adenosine is supposed to fit. So then when the body produces adenosine molecule, there is no space for the coffee to sit. That's what happening. So that metaphor, why the author is using that metaphor, that's why I take that coffee mug also above for your understanding. So the point is that we try to, if we can replace that, because right now our body or our brain is not able to fall asleep because adenosine is taken the place of, caffeine is taken a place of adenosine. That is the reason. So we usually have a negativity bias. Even from the childhood, we focus more on the negative than the positive thing naturally, because it is essential for our survival. So maybe an evolutionary trait in that way. But the point is that people think, okay, you should feel gratitude. Then people think, what I can be grateful for. If you follow Tony Robbins and all, you can even find a gratitude in the smallest things. Like for example, I am able to talk to you people now because I'm grateful for that time, because I'm not being catched up with any other things in my life. Similarly, you are watching this now because you get that much wealth of opportunity to listen this peacefully in your own time, and you are not getting any other distraction. So that is what, so Cicero, the Roman philosopher, Cicero mentioned it as gratitude is not the greatest emotion. He's telling it is the parent of everything. So gratitude is something else. So the point is that is one part of the thing. You can be grateful for it, but choose better emotion is something like you can be empathize with a situation and you can be compassionate to a situation. That is two different things. Empathy is something like you are in somebody else's shoes, but compassion is something you are not only in that shoe, you are doing more. It is something like, okay, a doctor just meet you and he is empathizing to your pain or relieving your pain, or talking to you and relieving your pain. That is something, okay, empathy. But he is trying to operate that patient and take out that pain. That is compassion. So you can be compassionate with yourself and you can be compassionate to the outer world as well. So focus less on yourself. So the point is that we care much on ourselves, but in that way, but also the same time we care much about what others are thinking about us. So there are two people at the same time. One who sees, like I'm seeing you, and one who is being seen. You are watching me. So there is two person at the same time, like quantum mechanical aspects and all. I'm not going there, but that is the thing. So William James, as I mentioned in the beginning, a Promethean act of will, the father of modern psychology, he is one of the person who has studied immensely on this two part. He is not even staying with two. He's telling we are in a multiple dimensions, and collaborating it together or making it in equilibrium is what the peacemaking is all about. So he's telling outside, like the observer is something more looking for a survival. If you don't be outward focused, maybe you'll be hit by a car, maybe a modern equivalent of a tiger, but something similar to that. But if you're inside, it is more about you as a person, who you are, such judgment, everything is happening in that part. So as per Zen Buddhism, life is an art of forgetting yourself. If you forget you as a person, then there is no you and others. There is only like one and all. Like in Hindu is philosophy and all, it's called Brahman. Like you are getting in like putting fulfilled in, or you're subliming into the Brahman. They call Aham Brahmasmi, like Tatvamasi and all. So similar to that. So the author is trying to tell, okay, just stay away from the reflections. That is one part of focusing less on yourself, like looking at a mirror. But now we have a modern equivalent like Facebook, Instagram, and other things. We are trying to show ourselves in a different way as well. So that is one part of the thing. We should care less for approval as well. We don't have to care how others are looking at it. We can be less. And the life is something like a pilgrimage. There is a story at the end of the chapter talking about a junior monk is asking about a senior monk, where are you going? And the monk is telling, I'm going for a pilgrimage. So the monk asks, where are you going? I don't know. So that, without knowing what is it, that makes every experience so immense, so nice in this being. Like instead of, okay, you have a target to achieve on that one, you achieve this, that is happiness. Instead, you can be more focused on, like, you don't have to be a prisoner for approval and all. You can be having even if you can be envy. But there are two type of envy. You can be envious about what somebody else having it. That's okay. But even so, there are malignant envy and benign envy. So envy sometime will give us same type of reflections as we have for regret. It can, like we talk about in our best behavior in other books about 7 deadly sins and all, how we are taking care. But malignant envy is something else. It is going to hurt someone else. So focus less on yourself. You will think that, okay, you cannot survive without thinking about yourself. If you don't think about yourself, you will be perished. That's not the situation. You can test for it. You can look for it. You don't have to look at the mirror. You don't have to always publish yourself in social media. You don't have to take somebody's approval for everything what you do. You don't have to be judged. When you judge, you will be judged, like what Bible is telling. So simple. So you don't have to do it in that way. Focus less on yourself. That is a pathway to happiness. So build your perfect family. So Leo Tolstoy famous said that happy families are all same, but unhappy families are different in their own ways. So each of them are different. So conflict is a signature or a sign of abundant love. So you can be as happy as your unhappiest child. Because even there are some idols of happiness. People think like money, power, prestige and all these things. But generally is that the 4 pillars of happiness, as we discuss in the book, is about family, friendship, work and faith. The point is that, like, imagine you go to a restaurant and if you're not ordering anything, you will not get a bill, right? So you are getting a bill because you are enjoying a delicious meal. Similarly, you're having a conflict because you have a lovely family at the same time. That's one part of the topic. So you have to acknowledge the conflict, and you can have, like, there are a couple of topics talking about boundaries, how we treat with, even there are books about drama free, about how the family conflicts has been taken care and such things. That is one part of the thing. Second thing the book is trying to give one new information is that complementarity. Because we usually think, even the dating apps, what we have, everything think that, like, we have to find some partner which is similar to us. Because dating app, mostly they will try to find your interest and try to match it. And they think that that is what you needed. But if you look at most of the people, they have always find their partners which is not same like them. Because that complementarity is actually trying to acknowledge or trying to improve that relationship. Because previously we have been getting date by friends and all these things, but nowadays dating apps also. But most of the people are not happy with it. So it is not the similarity, it is the complementarity that is what making it happen. Another topic talking about is the forgiveness part. You will be hurt with a lot of bad experience by the families and all these people, including the value breach, how they treat the relation, somebody would have hurt you, all these things. So you can be conditionally forgiving them or unconditionally forgiving them, that's fine. But the point is that if you don't forgive, it is something like a South Indian monkey. Like in South Indian, they have a trap for the monkey where they put a coconut and they make a hole on that and put an ice on the top, rice on the top. So monkey came and then tried to use its hand through the coconut and tried to get that rice. But when it is coming out, the hole is that much enough to take a fist of hand of monkey. So monkey will be somehow trapped, and he is not uh, he don't want to leave, because if you open his fist he can go, but he don't want to lose that rice he captured. So that is the situation we all have. We are somehow locked in the emotions of forgiveness. We think that okay, that emotion, that unforgiveness is an achievement for us, but somehow that is going to hurt us. You can be let go of that, and you can still be, don't have to forget about it, you can forgive about it. That is a totally different things. Forgetting and forgiving is different things. You can still keep that memory, but not like the monkey, which is hand is catched on that thing and people try to come and catch that monkey and just take him away. That's the situation. So you don't have to do that. Friendship, that is deeply ideal. So in 1921, Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, introduced something about a theory about introverts and extroverts. Maybe we still think that okay, introverts are not that much friendly, extroverts are different, like that. That is there. But the point here is that most of us, like what children's, they used to spend more time in school than in home. Similarly, most of us spend too much time on work than in with your family. That is there, like a 40-hour work week or more than that. So the point here is that before Carl Jung, we have Aristotle, which is mentioning about Nicomachean ethics, where is something like a ladder, where he tells that on the bottom of the ladder is something like we just have an attachment to connect, but it's more like a deal making. Like okay, you are making a friendship with someone because you just want to be, that will enable you to work better and such things and all. But other way, if you go to the highest level of that ladder, it is something like you go to a highest pleasure. You are not trying to make any deal out of that friendship. Then you don't have to, you are not attaching any views to that friendship. So you are not having any suffering. You are not detaching anything. You are not looking, okay, that friendship, you only have, always have to chat with someone, it will stay. That is still there. That is the highest level in Aristotle ladder. It will stay there and it will not be affected by any views or any misunderstanding or anything like that. So even Buddha used to mention it like similar thing, like a detachment or attachment, and detachment is coming mainly from Buddha. So the book is telling you even your spouse can be your friend. You can make a companionate love with a mutual understanding. People think that okay, you can be having a friendship with only with someone who is a friend. Actually, your spouse, your wife or husband can be a friend as well. You can have that companionship in that way, which will make it deeply ideal as well. So work is love made visible. Khalil Gibran. We have this we have some Khalil Gibran poem in our channel, which Osho is trying to explain and all. So this is a famous from Khalil Gibran. So the point is that work is love made visible. So it is not that okay, CEO is loving his work. You can be work in any part of your endeavor as long as you are engaging it wholeheartedly. That is love made visible there. So happiest job, there is nothing in common. You can find a bread brewer or a bread maker as much enjoying like a CEO working there. So there is something like earned success and learned helplessness, which is actually opposite. Learned helplessness coming from Marty Seligman about his dogs, he's not able to respond to the electric shock and all. Something like similar to human beings and us, we feel think that whatever you do, my life is like this, I cannot do anything. That is one part of the people. Or learned helplessness, Marty Seligman's examples. There is another way of people who try to improve the way they work and they earn success by that. That is earned success. You can improve 1% at a time. There is books talking about atomic habits and all. You end up with 37 something in a year and all. So that's a part. Also, a book explained about Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill, as you know, the British Prime Minister, he is very much a productive man. But at the same time, he was faced with depression and all such problems as well. Because people, the point all his biographers and researchers are making is that he's finding work as a way to cope up with his depressions. That's what make Churchill that much productive. So we have a similar situation now. We used to put too much time spending on work that we just go to burnout and all. We find that as a channel to something ending with workaholism and all. We admire busy people. We think burnout is an achievement. We think that okay, just coming home with a burnout situation. Even in the book of Exodus, God made the whole world and heaven everything in 6 days. On the Sabbath day, on the seventh day, he take a rest. So if God can take rest, why don't you and me can do the same? So work is love made visible. Chapter 8, this is the last chapter. Find amazing grace. Something about spirituality, religion and all. Oprah is telling, Brooks as well telling the same. So it doesn't depend on which religion you have. It also doesn't depend about like you follow one. Even if you think that okay, there is a higher self, that is still something a spirituality. So Lisa Miller, who wrote a famous book Awakened Brain, she tells that when we are in a spiritual effort, then the medial thalamus of our brain will be activated. That way we will cope up with the stress and strain and other things. Even in Quran, they're telling that if you want peace, come back to me. Something like that. So the stress removal is something like a mindfulness part as well. Because when we do something, be mindful on the things. If you wash dishes, it's telling just wash dishes. That's it. Be mindful on that. So Buddha or Bodhisattva, there is something like a seeking truth and helping others. Because seeking that Buddhism or that elite consciousness is something like we are breaking that cycle of birth and death, and at the same time you are staying where you are and you are helping others. So find that amazing grace in yourself. That is also can give you happiness. So that's about the book conclusion of this book. If you are like to interested in similar books, we have a book in our channel called Bittersweet by Susan Cain. I would highly recommend you watch that as well. Until we come across with the next book, bye for now. Thank you.